everybody. Welcome back to the Watchung Booksellers Podcast. I'm Catherine, and I'm here with Marnie. Hi, Marnie.
Hi. Today we're so pleased to introduce you to someone who runs one of the most important institutions in Montclair, the Montclair Public Library. Janet Torsney grew up in Montclair and knows and loves this town. She's been the director of the library for several years now and has shepherded in so many wonderful programs. Sadly for us, she's retiring next month, so we wanted to introduce you to her before she goes. And in lieu of a retirement party, the Montclair Public Library Foundation is hosting a fundraiser in her honor on Thursday, July 25th at Tierney's. And you can find all the details for that in our show notes.
And with her today, we brought in another true lover of books and of this town, our own Margot Sage-EL. They're going to share their thoughts on reading and community partnerships. First, what are you reading this week, Marnie?
I am reading Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling, and it's the 6th book in the series. I'm reading it with my daughter June, and we don't want it to end, but we're really enjoying it. How about you?
I just picked up Hero of This Book by Elizabeth McCracken. It came out last year. It is kind of autofiction memoir. I'm not even sure exactly how to define it, but it's about writing and memory and the loss of her mother, and it's all very funny and very tender, and I love it. Okay, let's get started.
Janet Torsney became the director of the Montclair Public Library in August 2022 after 6 months serving as interim director. Previously, she was the director of the Bradley Beach, Keyport, and Brielle public libraries and assistant director of the Montclair Public Library. Janet is a popular speaker about libraries, community outreach, and literacy. Prior to becoming a librarian, she had a distinguished career in communications with leading nonprofits and UN agencies. Born and raised in New Jersey, she earned a Bachelor of Arts in Political Theory and Medieval Literature from Georgetown University and a Master's of Library Science from Rutgers University. She lives in Asbury Park with her husband, Greg.
And Margot Sage-EL is the former owner of Watchung Booksellers. After running the store for nearly 30 years, she recently passed the helm to her daughter, Maddie, and continues to help with author events and in-store consulting. Her commitment to reading, social justice, and community partnerships has made Watchung Booksellers a cornerstone of Montclair.
Enjoy the conversation, and we'll be back after to fill you in on what's coming up in the store.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, Margot.
Thanks so much for coming. This is a real treat for me to have you here. Or as you said, this might be the first time we've been one-on-one.
I know.
But it's a little bittersweet with your impending retirement. But I do want to celebrate your long history in Montclair, at the library, with Watchung Booksellers. So tell us a little more about your life.
My life in Montclair.
Your life in Montclair.
Well, we moved from Clifton. No, I grew up in Montclair. We moved when I was in 4th grade.
Oh, that's so great.
And it's a great place to live, right? Particularly then. I'm 67 now, so it was a time where it was really a wonderful place. And I had no idea until I lived in other places how special Montclair was.
So you did, like, when you left for a while and lived other places and then came back.
So I went to, the classic Montclair thing. I left for college, and then I came back and lived in New York, and then I came back to Montclair to take care of my father, who still lived in our childhood home. So it was all was lovely, but a very classic, classic. And then we had 2 kids. We lived on Berkeley, which is a wonderful neighborhood to raise a child. There's so many, right? And my kids went to Edgemont.
Yep.
And we loved the Watchung Bookseller. And so I asked my family before this what they remembered. And I remembered my father, who was, I did not know at the time that this is like the holy grail for booksellers. He read only hardcover mysteries. And he read a lot of them. So that's a very good customer to have. I've learned since that.
Thanks,
so
Dad.
Exactly. When I came home, he's like, we've got a new bookstore. So I remember so clearly climbing up those drugstore steps to that space.
They were pretty steep.
Wild. And then it was like, a whole nother world. And I asked my daughters, I have 2 daughters, they're in their 30s now, about it. And they both remembered like being little and kind of scampering up those stairs and then, the bookstore.
It was a little hidden oasis up there.
And I did, for a while, I did a lot of women's self-employment training. And I almost always mentioned about you and your partner, how you knew you could open a bookstore, which you had never done before, because you had taught Sunday school together.
Oh, yeah.
And the women, everyone was like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, it was a really excellent anecdote to really bring
so funny.
So thank you for all that.
No, because it's like, you can work together. You
totally
can handle the difficult clientele, the preschoolers.
It was all going to work.
Yeah, it was all going to work. So it was great. But then when did you become a librarian?
Oh, so we were raising our kids in Montclair, and I volunteered at the Edgemont School Library, which I love. And I was doing a lot of refugee work at the time. I was working as a consultant, and I thought, I should be doing something more where I live. I mean, I really liked my work, but I was something closer to where I live. So I decided to go to library school.
Wow.
And I went to Rutgers, which was great. So I graduated from library school in 2008. So, and that has been interesting too, because although I'm like a young library school graduate, in that I don't have strong feelings about a reference department, and why don't people come and ask reference questions anymore? They just don't. So let's turn the space into something else.
Oh,
even though I'm of the age that, I know, it's so sad. It's so sad for some librarians, their whole careers.
Because I do remember that was like your go-to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's, was such an important skill. So I love that. So then, I was in different libraries. I was the director of the Bradley Beach Library. I was at the Colwell Library for a while. I lived in Asbury Park, so that's where I was. Brielle.
Okay.
Keyport, all those libraries. And then I came back to Montclair.
Thank you.
Which is when I should say, so the Bellevue Avenue branch was my childhood library. And even then, they were constantly concerned about children going down to the second floor because it was unsafe. Wow. So however many, like 60 years later. And then the main avenue was my kids' first library.
And then you came well after the whole renovation. And addition,
I think that was
right?
in 1997. Yeah.
Oh, God,
but my kids went when it was, do you remember when the children's thing was like in that pit on the first floor?
Yes.
And the kids were running out the door.
Yes, the third floor is a much more contained space.
I think actual librarians might have been involved in that decision.
That's so funny.
So and I came back to be the assistant librarian, actually, a certain assistant library director, which I really enjoyed.
Great.
Because it's a great library. I really love it. It's such a great town. Such a really great town.
I know when we first moved here, and it was like my haven with the kids, because you could just really spend hours, and reading all the books and bringing stacks home and
meeting other parents too, right? Like I think it's such a great
the
place.
whole aspect of community center and all. That's interesting that you said you were like a new enough librarian that you had a whole new outlook, and you're sort of at the forefront of this new movement where libraries are trying to figure out who they are.
Right. And people find me, like in library land, find me a little on the radical side, because I'm like,
really?
well, why don't we just have a statewide library card? Or
that's
why
interesting.
doesn't Wi-Fi extend out of all the building? Like things like that.
Right.
Like, no, we can't do that.
See, and I don't even understand the whole technology part of the library. I'm still a little old school. With my library card.
We're doing it. We're reading those ebooks.
Yes, I know.
We're downloading things.
You're amazing. But what's also amazing is like the amount of community service that you guys do.
Right.
And I mean, well, first let's go back. When you came in as a director, it was a difficult time for the library. And you really came in like a breath of fresh air. And we so needed your positive inclusivity. The whole message that you gave was a godsend. So
yeah, it was a funny time.
Yeah.
I was like, how did this come to be? But then all I would say, and I said it ad nauseum, is that we all want the same thing.
Right.
We all want the same thing. We want this library to rework. We want to re-engage with our town. So I got off kilter, but I think it was kind of easy to get it back in shape because people wanted it that way.
Right.
People really wanted their library to work.
Yeah, and you had a dedicated staff, and people were you were coming out of COVID, and that was a hard time. But
and I'm more of a yes person too. Like I try not to say no. I mean, when I say no, I really mean no. I don't have a problem saying no. But I think if people have an idea of something they want to do, I'm for it. Like try it. Then especially at a library, you're not putting millions of dollars on the line, or you're not going to be humiliated. It's just. Yeah. I know at the Princeton Library, which has fantastic everything, and is very high quality and film study and stuff like that. But one of their most popular programs is origami that one of their patrons started years ago. And, they're like, nobody was interested in origami. But they're
so
like, okay, fine. Yeah.
Well, and then the adult school was, should I say, enveloped by the library?
Yes, as it should be. We're all one happy family.
No, that was really great. Obviously, bringing community people in to teach their classes is great.
Yeah. People worry about paid classes in the library, which I take that very seriously because it is a public library and everyone should have access all the time and everyone's equal. But this has kind of an interesting ladder. You could, all the Excel classes, for example, are free. But if you want to learn something like pivot tables, you pay something for that, and Montclair residents are half off. So I feel like that's still a level of accessibility. And it kind of works the other way. Like the sign language class was a paid adult school class, but very popular. So now that group just meets in the library to be with each other and also to teach other people. So it has a really nice circular effect. So.
Yeah. And then you have book groups out of the library, but they're through the adult school and just meeting at the library.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly.
And how do people come to you to meet at the library? Do they just sign up for a room or?
Right. For that How House event, right?
Yes.
In fact, we made you fill out the form. There's a form. Right. And if it's available, the availability is a big thing. Okay. Particularly our auditorium is booked quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that auditorium is fabulous.
Isn't it?
And we've used it over the years, and it's generous of you guys not to charge us, to have formed a partnership where we can work together.
Because we all want the same thing, don't we, Margot?
We do.
We secretly want everyone to read because we know their life will be better.
That is true.
It's like I keep sneaky literacy. Don't talk about it, but it's true.
I know. Wait, there was also one thing that you spoke about, the whole issue where the libraries are really, I have to say, more endangered with the banned books movement. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of bookstores around the country who have trouble with it. But, thankfully, we are happily in our Montclair bubble and really have not had a problem. Every now and then somebody will complain that we don't have a certain political book front and center or not in the window or whatever. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, people have left us alone, which is great. But you've had some more pushback, right?
Right, right. And that, people are certainly entitled to that. Like, I try to bring the temperature down on that. People certainly have a right to reconsider a program or a book or displays. Sometimes people object to displays.
Yes, they do.
So we have a process for all that.
Oh,
but
you do?
I think, and I think I mentioned to you, I don't like to talk about banned books. I like to talk about the right to read because the question is who decides that. Like, for myself, I decided maybe 20 years ago I wasn't going to read any fiction that had child abuse as a plot point. Huh. I just stopped. But that doesn't mean I think that you shouldn't carry books like that or you shouldn't read them or, in our family, then when my kids were little, I might have told them that they couldn't read a book, which I'm sure they ignored, but I might have mentioned it. And I think that's legit, but what your right is to tell other people what to read.
So how do you handle it if people come up and demand that a book should be removed?
Well, we go through the
library?
reconsideration process, and it's a form. They have to fill it out. They have to say why they objected to it, how they objected to it. Libraries are always taking books off the shelf anyway because we're always ordering new books. Yep. And there's, some really horrendous books that are somehow remain on the shelf. Like about East Germany would be good, but there's some things about native peoples that are just like, how could this possibly still be on the shelf? So I try and put it all in that context and just be calm.
Interesting.
Because when people act crazy, I try and act calmer. And it seems to work.
I think it
and
does.
Everybody wants to be heard. And we did change our reconsideration form that you had to have a Montclair Public Library card.
Okay.
And we debated that a little bit, is that a barrier? But no, it's a free card, and our library is supported by our community, financially and otherwise. So that seemed legit.
So you have the major supports from the town, and then you are generously supplemented through the Library Foundation.
Right, exactly. Great. Our foundation friends. I love them.
They are amazing.
I love our foundation friends.
Yes, no, they are amazing.
And they're also really fun. It's so creative, and also bring so many people into the community and into the library.
Yeah, they've had some really great events, like fundraisers that, again, are all centered on literacy. And it's just great, author at the table or...
Yeah, there was a series of 3 of them.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah. That was wonderful. And then they recently had an event, a trivia contest at Tierney's, of course, where else? And I was so happy to hear that most of the people were not involved with the library at all. So that's a wonderful thing, too, because I'm always very interested in who's not coming in.
Right.
I'm sure you are, too.
Why?
Yeah.
So what do you find is your most effective outreach?
I think, the programming that represents different people's interests and different people's identity definitely helps. I think people want to feel welcome.
Yeah.
People, I don't know if it's the same with bookstores too, but people, I feel like they almost feel like judged or bring their childhood library experiences with them. Like it's a little hard to know where you're supposed to go and are you going to get a fine or are you talking too loud? So there's a level of anxiety too.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to do more fun things in the library and then gradually let people get more and more comfortable and then start reading.
Yeah. So I find selecting books is an incredibly intimate process. And so people might feel, we have tried really hard to have like a judgment-free zone. Like, you want to read a beach read or 50 Shades of Grey, like that's what people wanted. We had stacks. Like I was not going to turn my nose up at that. And then you also mentioned that you liked our social media now, that it's another way of recommending books without like we're still in contact with people, but it's a safer zone. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And also a reminder of how different, obviously your staff is different. Like it's just refreshing every time.
Yeah.
Because you tend, in life and in reading, you tend to get in your zone a little bit.
Exactly. And that's, I know what we try, and I'm sure you guys do among the librarians, is we really try to spread out the reading, not just your responsibilities in the bookstore, but your personal reading. So sometimes when a book is really popular, like just one person on staff has read it because we know, she said it was good, so I'll try something else, because you're always trying to discover the undiscovered book.
Wow.
And so I don't know if you guys find that among the librarians.
Yeah, for sure. And there's the people who are really ardent readers and people who read certain kind of books. It's very interesting. And still they say, I don't know if this is still true, but the handwritten note, just like the index card, moves the books more than anything.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's that same thing. You're not getting personally involved, but you are.
Yeah.
When I was at the Bradley Beach Library, I forget why we did this, but we put a sticker in the new books with describe this book in 5 words or 3 words. It was a very small amount of words. And I think we just wanted people to be reading more and more engaged and, destroying the books also by putting the stickers in.
Wait, they were actually,
it was like it was a badge. It looked like a library takeout card, sort of,
Cool.
And so it was just, and so people just loved that. It would be somebody's initials and, the 2 or 3 words. And then people were trying to discover each other, who returned this. I think I'm in love.
That's true.
But it was so, because it's a private activity, right? But there's a communal aspect to it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that's interesting because people do try to find out who recommends the books that they like. So yes, everyone has certain followers at the bookstore. So it's kind of cool to watch that happen. So the other thing I want to talk about is all the programming that you guys do, that we do. And I know sometimes people think that we're competing against each other.
Can you imagine?
I know. Whereas
people, what are you thinking?
Whereas we feel totally supported by the library, and in turn, we try to support the library. Like when there are certain events, the proceeds basically go to the library.
No, it's absolutely. We have the same mission, right?
Yes.
And also our beautiful community, all these wonderful people who are here, to talk about their books or talk with other people about books. It's so wonderful. But I feel like we are completely on a mission, and we don't, as you say, get a chance much to talk about it, but we totally are in the same wavelength about, we can count on you. I know we were talking today about an event that wasn't getting as many people signing up as we were hoping for. And we were like, we don't want Margot to come and have it be so few people buying books. But, and I said, well, we have some big events, some we don't. And, we're respectful of each other, of course, always. And your abilities. Oh my gosh, Margot, when I'm thinking of Colson Whitehead at First Kong, the books were flying. He's signing. People are coming in. Everyone, it's just a beautiful, I don't even want to use the word machine because it's more beautiful than that.
No, but
you really know exactly what you're doing. You do it so very well.
But that's because we also have great partners, like with you guys, the Literary Festival.
Yeah, the Literary Festival.
And community groups around town.
And the spaces, right?
Yeah.
I know we decided for our larger groups to really lean on our neighbors, to have things there, and that's made things much better, too. It's more predictable.
Yes. And it's part of the whole drawing people in, again, more so. And yes, and hopefully they'll support each of us in our endeavors. But I know one event that's coming up in the fall that think we're both particularly excited about is having Matthew Desmond, the author of Poverty in America, come. And you made arrangements with Partners for Health, another community organization, to support this event, which is amazing.
Oh my gosh, they are so generous. They're so in for this. I'm so proud to be part of it. And they are just so generous. They wanted to have people to have a chance to have book clubs before he comes to speak in September. So we have a call out now to different community organizations for people who want to get the book and read it.
Right.
And Partners for Health is going to buy the books. So generous.
It is amazing.
And it's already up to 100 books just for this kind of at-large community. And it's all different kinds of people. I mean, a lot of them are people actually I don't know, organizations and churches I don't know. So I'm just so excited about that. And I think there will probably be, before he does his public talk, there'll be a working group session with some people who work with unhoused and poverty issues in Montclair. That will be like a real working group, finding out from him what he thinks and what we've learned. I'm very excited about that, too.
Wow.
So I really admire their vision. It's been so fun to work on it. And you, of course, are so key to it because neither one of us know anything about book selling, and you've made it so easy. And every time we're like, okay, well, what about audiobooks? Okay, we'll figure that out. Or what about having these, book club orders now and then more orders? So you've really been helpful in making it.
Oh, thanks.
But I think it's going to have a very big impact. I'm really glad.
I think it's going to have a huge impact. And because of the Partners for Health generosity and your organization, it really is becoming like a town-wide read.
Exactly.
And I love the idea of having book groups. I was at an AAPI event the other night, and someone there was talking about how their book group was doing the Poverty in America. And I'm like, oh, great. It's like, this is actually going out into the getting people to come. So that is September 12th.
I think it's September 12th, yeah.
Did you guys initiate this, or did
No, they were interested in co-sponsoring an Obama event.
Okay.
They thought, this is like they've done, I believe, a new strategic plan, so they're looking at different ways. Open book, open mind.
Yes.
When I came back to the library, I thought that Obama, for some reason, had a much bigger presence because when I left, it was open book, open mind. When I came back, it was Obama. I'm like, is he coming? I don't know. But yeah, so that was that. But it's a level of sponsorship we haven't done before. It's really great.
No, I think
it really fulfills everybody's mission.
Yes,
actually.
Yeah, definitely.
And for the whole town too. I mean, it's people are really interested in talking about issues here. It's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah. Are things quieter for you guys in the summer?
A little bit. The children's world gets busier.
I know. A couple of years ago, we did try to delve into summer reading program, but then we realized, the library does such an incredible job. Like, we're not going to try to duplicate anything. And instead, I think we just donate the gift cards.
Oh, that's so nice. That's perfect.
For your winners.
Yeah.
I mean, is it competitive?
Some people like to compete. We do. We do. But I worked in one library where the school district switched their, the summer assignments to do the diorama and whatnot. They just said, just do the public library program. Yeah. And when the school started, and this was just the superintendent decided this, did not consult with the teachers. I'm not one to judge. I saw opportunity.
Yes.
But when the kids went back to school in September, the teachers were like, what went on this summer, especially for the reluctant readers? Because we'd be like, if you read a dinosaur book 5 times, that is 5 points for you, my man. Pick a treasure. And it was incredible. Isn't that funny?
That's great.
Yeah.
So is the program growing at the Montclair Library?
Yes, and the same thing. I think that we're much more involved with the school district. We're doing a big supportive thing for their Science of Literacy, actually. Okay. So we're doing story walks. We have a resource thing on our website. We're doing training. So we're really...
That's great.
Yeah. It's
and
important.
That's already in place now, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning about decodables.
Yeah.
I didn't know about decodables before.
I know. I think we have to up our game on that. But
Oh, I want to talk about this gift that you gave me and my family personally, which is, as I said, I have these 2 daughters, Hannah and Michaela Walker, and they grew up going to your midnight Harry Potter parties, and they remember them so specifically that, and they were young, and that at first it was just like, kind of get the books and leave, and then the next time it was, people were dressed up, and the next time it got more and more elaborate, but they just loved it.
Did they come to the last one where we had the block party?
Yes, yes, they came to every one.
That was...
and would walk home and stop in the street and read on the street lights on the way home.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a foundational memory. So thank you for that.
It was an incredible night. And we had Arthur Levine,
That's right.
the publisher, come and read. And did he come in costume? I can't remember now. But yeah, the kids' costumes were amazing. And the other thing, it was like, and it was midnight, truly midnight when this was happening.
Good choice, right?
Yeah.
Hard on you, but a good choice.
Yes. Well, the publisher, that was the game that they played. That you couldn't release the book until July 25th, which meant, at midnight. Other people talk about how it was the first time they let their kids out at night alone to come to that and to come back. And yeah, the minute we handed out, the kids were just sitting on the curb, just reading the book. It was wonderful.
It's magical.
And talk about getting reluctant readers to read. I found the Harry Potter books really special because they were not dumbed down. It was great vocabulary and, of course, lots of adventure. But the kids who didn't normally read read those.
Absolutely.
Came and read those books.
Absolutely. And they were long, right? Like, people didn't think kids would read,
Long
kids that
books.
age would read long books at all.
Yep.
But each one got longer and longer. But
Yes.
it's another.
Yes, that was just another issue. But I know, and I'm kind of keep looking for another thing like that.
Yeah, like Percy Jackson. Those were good books.
Those
but
are great
not
books.
the same
And they've
shared experience, I don't think.
Well, there are summer camps. A lot of people have Percy Jackson summer camps.
Oh my gosh, how fun!
At least they did, 5 years ago. We should look and see if that continues. But yeah, there is that whole thing about bringing reading to life. And I feel like we definitely have more of a challenge these days. Did you find that COVID affected reading habits on kids?
For sure.
Yeah.
Like the attention span and
Yep.
it's hard. I mean, it's really hard. I find for myself, I saw a play of The Scarlet Letter, which I really enjoyed the play, and I'm like, oh, that's one of my favorite books. I'm going to read it. I could not. It was just too, I don't know if it was too complex or, it has like that whole beginning. There's a lot of history in the beginning. I'm like, come on. But it really was my favorite book.
I know, but the writing was much denser back then.
Very. And
Is that because they had no other, well, not that they had no other form of entertainment, but I mean, it's like storytelling or...
Yeah, or was that part of
reading.
it? Like, if
Yeah.
you just started to go right into the story, what was wrong with you? People would be like, no.
Interesting. All right, we'll have to study that.
Puzzle that. And I know for myself during COVID, I started reading romance novels at a clip that everything with the Duke, anything with the Duke in it, I read it. Probably numerous times because I don't even care. I'm
it
just
was
reading.
all escape reading. All escape, although except for after George Floyd's murder.
Right.
That was an explosion of books, like people seeking answers about race relations.
Yeah. And what they could do too.
What
it was
they could
very
do. Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
really important too.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, I mean, over the years we have found that, not that we have made a difference, but in shepherding the books, either
It's
in
a
other
huge
way.
difference.
Yeah.
And I think especially for kids, particularly for boys, I think for younger boys, I think they're, they just get pushed to the side a bit with their reading. It tends to be repetitive. It tends to be nonfiction.
Yeah.
That's all. That's very legit.
I was going to say.
But Anne of Green Gables, that's fantastic. Good for you. You read a real book.
Well, and the whole graphic novels issue.
Exactly.
Dogman or what is it, Captain
Underpants.
It's like
go.
Yeah, exactly. He's reading. He gets pleasure out of it. It's like let them enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because we're on the same page.
As per.
So where are you taking all of this in your retirement? What are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to take the rest of the summer off and enjoy Asbury Park, which I love, and then move to Delaware.
Wow.
So that's the plan.
That'll be great.
And sell my house. I'm really hoping my husband will sell my house while I'm still working. But
I thought
we'll see.
I thought you mean while you're lounging around in Asbury Park.
That would be fine. But I want to be as uninvolved as possible.
Oh. Is it going to be hard to leave the library world, do you think? Although moving to a whole new location will put you in a different perspective, right?
And actually Wilmington has excellent libraries.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, especially this has been very enjoyable but kind of intense. So I'm really looking forward to, getting back to writing a haiku a day and
that's
cooking, maybe beekeeping.
That would be great.
So I don't know how long that will last, but
yeah. And what are you reading
I am reading, actually, in preparation for the Montclair Literary Festival event, The Demon of Unrest.
Great.
Which I really enjoy. And I just happened to be, because it came through in the library as an ebook and an audiobook, I'm listening to it and reading it at the same time.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's
so how do you do that? Like,
well, in a very random, disorganized way, Mark. When I'm in my car, sometimes it's part I've already heard. But it's interesting, it's also interesting. It's a nonfiction book, but the guy does different voices.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's...
No, I tend to, for audiobooks, I tend to do nonfiction.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so I have never read Robert Caro's A Power Broker.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm like, okay, I live in New York. You hear, or I did live in New York, and you hear of all of his impact. I mean, I really should read this. So I downloaded it from our partner, Libro FM, and it comes in 3 parts. And the first part is 22 hours.
A day of your life.
Yeah. Well, okay. So it's going to take me a while, but it is amazing. Like the amount of information, the detail, which I'm kind of like scoping on, but his impact. So, yeah, that was...
Yeah, and kind of original, too, right? It wasn't like... He did Central Park, right?
Not Central Park, Riverside, Jones Beach. He definitely did, all the Long Island.
Oh, the Long Island things. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
So there was something about the rock movement, like he would take out the rocks that were originally there, and then bring back ones that were just like,
so
that's a whole level of detail.
I'm not there yet.
Well, when you get there, go, whoa.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because he had such a major impact on New York. Like, all the things that made New York livable are all these parks, and yet he has kind of an evil reputation.
Absolutely.
So I'm just getting into, like, the power part of it, so I find that fascinating. But for pleasure, I just picked up Night Watch by Jane Ann Phillips.
Oh, I just started to read that.
So good.
I'm a little worried about the gal, though. Daughter.
You should be worried.
Okay.
No, because it's a story of how women navigated the Civil War when they were left alone, and it was a dangerous time.
Yeah.
But her writing is really beautiful.
And she hasn't written anything in a long time, right?
I think it's been a couple years. So,
I remember when she first came out, and she was just so popular and different and beautiful, too, actually.
Yeah, and that was good.
Huh, all right, I'll pick it back up. I thought it was in my danger zone, so.
That'll be good.
Well, I want to say one more thing too about this. I don't know if people are aware of how incredibly well regarded you are in the publishing industry and among other bookstores. You're a total leader in other independent bookstores and in publishing, and that's something really to be proud of for you, of course, but for our town. Like, it's the whole other, and you built that.
Well,
Margot, you built that.
Yeah, I built that, but it's also because, as you know, the town is full of all these incredible writers. The publishing industry lives here, as does half of the New York Times. It's like, it's not hard to...
Yeah, so you say,
we've got great people here, so...
Yeah, but you've really done a great job. And, people from I think, I did this thing with forming a book cooperative, and everyone I talked to was like, you have to talk to Margot first. I'm like, I know Margot.
I'm really good friends
I'm not as
with
smart as Margot.
Stop it.
I think she also works harder.
No.
But it really is true. And I think, people might not realize that, but it's really...
Thank
it's
you.
very much a feather in your cap since you started with your Sunday school teaching friend.
Yes. My Trina Rogers, who's always kept me on the straight and narrow. You always need that friend, right?
So true.
Who'll keep you on
so
the path.
True.
So, yeah. Well, this I know will not be your only send-off because, as I said, you have left the library in incredible shape, or you are leaving the library in incredible shape. And
it's a great library. And Montclair's a library town, as we know.
Library, yes, it is definitely a library town. But you came in, as you said, you came in with this yes attitude, which was so wonderful, and it was like being hugged. It's like, oh, Janet, what can we do for you? No, and it was really wonderful because it was, as I said, since it was such a difficult time, that you came in, and here you are, like leaving this jewel in jewel shape, and and
Cool shape. I love that.
and so, and I know a new director is going to come in and, make their own mark. But
Yeah, it's going to be great.
You have left a mark in Montclair, and we are very grateful.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Janet.
Especially conspiring with you for good.
So thank you, Janet.
Thank you. That's great. This is so fun.
Thanks, Janet and Margot. Janet, we will miss you, but are so grateful for the work you've done to keep Montclair a library town.
And before we go, I want to highlight a few of our upcoming events that you won't want to miss. This Thursday, June 27th, we've got Julia Phillips back to share her second novel, Bear. Julia is the author of Disappearing Earth, which was a New York Times Top 10 Book of the Year and a finalist for the National Book Award. And for our spy thriller fans, don't miss our night with Daniel Silva on Tuesday, July 9th. He's launching his latest Gabriel Allon novel, A Death in Cornwall, that very day. He's only doing a handful of events on the East Coast, so don't miss out on this chance to meet him.
And on Thursday, July 11th, we welcome Joyce Maynard back with her latest novel, How the Light Gets In. She'll be in conversation with our own Alice Elliott Dark, so it's sure to be a great event. And don't forget about Janet's sending off party, karaoke night at Tierney's on Thursday, July 25th. Details will be in the show notes. You can find out about all of our upcoming events in our newsletter, show notes, and at watchungbooksellers.com.
Recording and editing at Silverstream Studio in Montclair, New Jersey. Special thanks to Timmy Kelleny, Brie Testa, and Derek Mathias. Original music is composed and performed by Violet Mujica. Art and design by Evelyn Moulton, and research and show notes by Carolyn Shirtliff. Thanks to all the staff at Watchung Booksellers and the Kids Room for their hard work and love of books.
And thank you for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, please like, follow, and share it. You can follow us on social media at Watchung Booksellers. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to wbpodcast@watchungbooksellers.com.
We'll see you next week. Until then, for the love of books, keep reading.